Employment Tribunal is happening today, tomorrow, brought, we're told, by a man who allegedly lost his job for criticising a workplace course on unconscious bias. He apparently wondered that if white privilege existed, then might black privilege do so too in a country like Ghana? Well, his comments weren't meant to be shared. He reportedly left his computer microphone on, but on the face of it, they hardly seem to warrant dismissal, if that's what happened. Joining us now, the retired judge and chair of the Society of Black Lawyers, that's Peter Herbert, as well as the author and charity worker Nick Buckley. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time. Our question is diversity training indoctrination? Peter Herbert, what do you say?
Well, no, it depends on how it's done. I mean, you're not going to indoctrinate people if the training is appropriate, like equality training or training on financial management. Or how to broadcast. You know, anything can be indoctrination if it's done improperly. But generally speaking, it is done by professional people, and you will get people who are good at it, and you'll get people who are good. But it's an important part of our society, as with anything else.
Nick Buckley, it's all just training, and there are good trainers and bad trainers.
There is good trainers, there is bad trainers. But the courses themselves are not needed, they're a waste of time, and they're divisive. And for me, the ones I've seen, it's a form of brainwashing. You know, we have a different elite now saying to people, we're going to tell you how you act and what you think and what you believe. And if you don't, there'll be consequences. And I'm just not for it at all.
Peter Herbert, there is obviously, it seems to me, a distinction between, say, being trained how to do a TV interview and being trained to spot the signs of white privilege. One, I would submit, reaches into areas of individual conscience. One is tendentious, one isn't. For me, what's striking and what struck me before is the fact that you're invited on these courses. An invitation suggests you can decline. You can't, not really.
Well, it depends on your employer. I mean, there are also people who refuse to be trained. I took part in training of full and part-time judges in the 90s, and there were about 5% of judges who just would not receive any training. And you will get in an employment situation people who do not wish to move from their own, often quite prejudicial views of the world, and whether that be xenophobic or racist or basically gender bias, that you, in a sense, are faced with a difficulty. I don't know this individual, and it is for the tribunal at some point to determine where the truth lies. But you will have, as my colleague there, you will have people who think it's all a waste of time anyway. I mean, there are dinosaurs all over the place, and they have to be confronted at times and dealt with. But they have to
okay, well, let's put that to said dinosaur. Nick Buckley, you're a dinosaur and you need to be confronted.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. We have self-proclaimed elite that will say, only my view is the right view. Only I know what is right for you, what is right for society, the right for everybody else. It's my view because I'm better than you. I need to send you on training so you think a little bit more like me. It never crosses any of their minds that they may be wrong. It never crosses any of their mind that they may be right, but also other people may be right. We talk about diversity, and this is a cliche now, but we never talk about diversity of thought. Just because someone doesn't agree with me doesn't mean I'm right, that doesn't mean I'm wrong. The more different types of thought and different ideas we have, the better society will be. But diversity of thought is the only diversity we do not want in this country.
Peter Herbert, what do you say to those people who say, OK, I mean, Peter suggested that there were lawyers he's worked with who declined the opportunity to go on a course, but they were probably quite well established in their careers. They'd been well paid up until then. That's not the experience of the vast majority of people who are lower down the employment food chain and who feel perhaps that if they decline the opportunity to go on one of these courses, they prejudice their future career prospects.
Well, I was talking about judges, actually, not lawyers. And it doesn't matter where you are on the food chain, you have a duty to act within the law. And therefore, in a sense, there may be many people, I jokingly called it a dinosaur view, but actually who would practice unlawfully and discriminate quite visibly against their colleagues. That is unacceptable. What they think inside their own mind is perfectly acceptable, but let it stay there. And it is what is called a balancing of rights. So no, it's wrong for people to insist that there cannot be a diversity of views. Of course there can be, but the diversity of views must end when it causes unlawful offence or harm to others. And therefore, all of us act as you do as a broadcaster. You will not tolerate people who are abusive or swear on air. Those are rules. That's not diversity of thought. There are some people who would love to swear on air, but they don't, because your broadcasting standards don't allow it. So all of us have a right to respect the values, the norms, and the sensitivities of others.
Nick Buckley, can we just address the democratic principles that may or may not be at stake here? It certainly seems to me, and I'll express a personal opinion as I already have on this, that there is a problem, there is a democratic deficit when it comes to some of these areas. I'm thinking of things like inclusive language guides, but it can also be the imposition, I use that word carefully, of unconscious bias courses. That the people who decide what those courses ought to contain, or an inclusive language guide ought to contain, if they actually put that to the test, the democratic test, and so we are talking about something very profound here, how people think, then actually, and that democratic test was put to all the employees rather than just a small cabal who work in corporate affairs or HR, then the answer they'd get might not be the one they wanted.
Absolutely. And that's probably why they'll never do it. Now, Peter's right. If we're looking at the law, then businesses, individuals, we need to enforce the law. And if we don't like the law, then we need to change it. We don't break it, we change it. Now, running alongside the laws, we have social norms. And social norms are unwritten rules a society develops over time that nearly all of us sort of agree with, and we go along because we know it's for the greater good. And some of the things that were wrong 50 years ago, homosexuality was illegal and was looked down upon. Through the changing of social norms have become acceptable. Now you can get married if you're gay. So if we want to change some of these things that diversity training is saying they want to change, then it's the law or it's the slow chipping away at social norms, because everybody needs to agree with these things in society. Because what's happening now, because we're being dictated to, we're beginning to fracture, we're splitting into groups, and there's going to be a backlash if we don't stop this, and if we don't start coming together and all following the same rules and all following the way that we all want to live in this country.
Well, Peter Herbert, that was the point made a few moments ago by Toby Young, the General Secretary of the Free Speech Union, who said that actually, in his view, and he pointed to some evidence to this effect, that sometimes unconscious bias courses can actually have the counterproductive effect of racialising people who hitherto hadn't really given it a lot of thought. It can backfire.
I'm not sure quite what world they're living in, but, you either have those views or you don't. People don't just go on an unbiased, anti-bias course or racist course and suddenly become racist or xenophobic or sexist. No, that's a nonsense. You either are you or you're not. And therefore the backlash is, if you're a thinking, knowing, rather reason being, you have a choice. You have a choice whether to keep your thoughts to yourself. You know they may cause offence, and keep them to yourself. If it is about that willingness to respect difference of others. And that's all, in a sense, diversity is. You respect the right of women to be who they are, people who are gay to be who they are, and people who disagree with your views to be who they are. And yes, if you stop them vocalising that is simply to stop them breaking the law or causing offence, which is unnecessary, harmful, and really can't, in a sense, once those words or conduct are uttered, be put back, as you would having the Prime Minister having a COVID lockdown party. I mean, we have those norms. one of the things, you might break the law, but you broke the social norm of what was acceptable or unacceptable.
But code it. This is, I think, we come to the nub of it there. Nick Buckley, codifying social norms. Peter Herbert mentioned doing, say, training in media training. I can tell you objectively what a terrible interview looks like. Let's hope it's not this one. You know, you look at the camera. There are certain bits of TV grammar you obey, and that's objectively true. It seems to me, and I've sat through an unconscious bias course dealing with race, and I found it pretty meretricious. I thought it was psychobabble, and I thought it was subjectively bogus. And that's very different from, say, teaching something about how you do, you know, make sure you look at the camera, sit straight, don't fidget, which is objectively true. These are very different things. Nick Buckley.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go back to my original statement. This is a type of brainwashing. And as Peter said, we obey the law, but then there's also, don't say things that may be harmful. Well, who judges harm? It goes back to the same thing again. Keep your mouth shut. If you're not going to say what we want you to say or what we agree with, you better be quiet. And it's constant all the time of lots of these different organisations that are promoting this sort of ideology. And it always is the same lesson. Agree with us or shut up. And it's not this training is just about that. And people sit there. I know people have been on this training and they sit there. They're fuming inside, but are too scared to say anything because of what happened to this train driver. They're absolutely fuming.
Well, allegedly to this train driver. Gentlemen, thanks for keeping that sensible and civil. Nick Buckley, Peter Herbert, thanks very much indeed.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.